Next up, please welcome Lystable, presenting our Peter Johnston and Jesse Cowan. Take it away.
Easy. Hey, Disrupt. You good? Thank you for having us back today and for the party yesterday. That was cool. So my name is Pete, and I'm the founder and CEO of Lystable. And our company is facilitating a new way of working together. All the logos you see on screen have something in common. They all have twice as many contractors and vendors doing work for them than they have full-time employees. And we believe that this way of working is the future. So I started Lystable to solve a problem. I worked at Google as a product designer. And on a daily basis, I experienced the pain working in an organization reliant on countless contractors and vendors. At capacity, our design studio would work with over 1,000 contractors a month and tons of external agencies. And we had no formalized way to handle this. So to find the right contractor, I would literally shout across a room, send emails around looking for recommendations, or resort to the outdated spreadsheets all the designers kept. And this sucked and wasted so much of my time. So once I actually found the perfect contractor or vendor, we'd have to engage them on a project. And now it would be multiple team members, multiple departments, chatting through tons of different channels, and tons of different document sharing apps like Dropbox, WeTransfer, Google Drive. This whole workflow process between companies to outsource parties is a complete mess and super inefficient. So today, I want to tell you how we're solving the same problem for the Economist Group. And they have what they call a contributor network, and it's made up of thousands of journalists, writers, researchers, illustrators, photographers all around the world that contribute to what they do. I'm going to jump into a demo. So this is the view our client would get, Scarlett. This is their internal index. And firstly, she's imported those old spreadsheets, and we've built these contractor cards of everyone. And now they're searchable and accessible by everyone in The Economist. And going forward, if she wants to onboard someone new, she just jumps into the admin tab, selects templates, and she can create these super flexible onboarding templates. And she can ask the prospective vendors and contractors questions like, what's your day rate? Are you available on-site or remote? Or require them to sign the Economist terms of service. And to onboard them, she can just email a link or copy and paste and share these forms to onboard. And that's it, problem solved. All of their contributor network information, past and future, will be stored in one place, accessible by all of their employees. So then a brief would come in, and Scarlett needs to find a press photographer, so she'd search their internal index, and she'd find Patrick. And on Patrick's profile, she can track everything she needs to know about him, from his availability, the original onboarding information, the skills he possesses, and more importantly, the internal feedback from employees that have worked with him previously. And it's important to note the privacy icon on this profile just means that it's internal to The Economist only. This is their management system. So next, she'd book him for a job. So she'd go into the Projects tab. Firstly, she can see all the previous projects. And then she'd book him for a new job. So she sets the title, the duration of the job. She uploads the brief. She tags any relevant skills and keywords. She makes it visible to the vendor. And she tags relevant team members in it too. And once she posts that, notifications are sent, and it will create this dual project tracking interface, with one tab private only to The Economist, where they can upload their own feedback, notes, docs, have a discussion with colleagues, and the other shared with the contributor. And she can add and tag as many contributors and vendors as she wants to this project. Also during this process, we have one communication thread between The Economist, her team, and the contributor. It's integrated with Gmail and Outlook, and it's super neat, object-based. You can tag the same way you can on Twitter, people, projects, invoices. So once the project finishes, we will auto-request feedback from all the team members that have worked with Patrick, asking them to evaluate his performance. And this would have been vital for us, because tracking who's good at what within an organization, like institutional knowledge, is always lost. We'd also auto-request that Patrick uploads his invoice. So when they're managing these contributors at scale, all the invoices being pulled into one tab, Scarlett can give access to her finance team, and she can approve the payments and distribute them to up to 80 countries, all through Lystable. And that's it. So that's our product. I hope it's give a broad overview of how we're helping companies like Google, like The Economist, onboard, manage, communicate with, and pay these huge contributor networks. So we're a SaaS company with a freemium model. And we're super excited about what we're doing because 50% of all organizations are going to move to this way of working by 2020. And coinciding with that, 60% of the world's workforce will be independent contractors too. And we believe that these two converging facts mean that the current workplace is not equipped to handle this shift. So all these logos on screen are also using Lystable. And the most important thing is they're all listing a diverse group of contractors and companies. So we have fashion companies listing their models, stylists, makeup artists, publishers, like you've seen, listing their illustrators, researchers, and journalists, to consumer tech giants like Google listing everything from their freelance UX designers to their marketing agencies. So I'm super excited today to say that any company can sign up at our new website, lystable.com, and use the product entirely for free. And I want to finish by thanking my team who have worked tirelessly. We celebrated our first birthday last week to make this happen. So thank you for that. They all left some pretty cool companies to do so. And to my flatmate, who should also be in the audience, I gave him a shout out yesterday too. But he wrote me a $50,000 check to leave Google 13 months ago. So thank you for that, and cheers, Disrupt.
All right. Great job. Judges, who wants to kick it off?
That is that's a pretty awesome list of customers there. Really impressive. What's your adoption like inside these companies?
Yeah, so the more integrated with their current tools, there's a pretty big difference between it just going in there cold and being integrated with like their project management software. But at the moment, it's strong. And we try not to just put it in there cold and exist as its own entity. We'll usually try and encourage like integration with Basecamp, integration with their finance system that can pull the vendor's details like directly through. And it's relatively high at the moment, yeah, for those test and pilot clients, yeah.
So I have I guess, kind of a strategic macro question, which is, this is very enterprise focused. You get into the enterprise, you allow them to manage their quote-unquote supplier relationship, in this case, contractor relationship. How do you compete vis-a-vis the market networks? So somebody like Crew, for mobile app design, or Contour for office design, you have all these market networks where, entire ecosystems come together, maybe designers, architects, suppliers.
Yeah.
And, how do you outperform these kind of vertical network-enabled solutions? Would love to hear your view on that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I love Crew. They're a really cool company based out of New York. So we integrate with them. So we just want to deliver the freelancer or vendor management system. We're super focused on that, and whether it's the market network plays like Crew or TopTal, or it's the straight out marketplaces like Upwork. Our idea is to just make the platforms that they currently use more transactional. So they'll arrive at Crew or they'll arrive at TopTal, and then we see them very much as downstream, and they're going to be used a lot. Whereas if our system sits at the mouth of the river and it's split between HR and finance and ops and project management, they're just going to book them straight through Crew, through Lystable as well. So we have a pretty aggressive partnership plan for next year with a lot of market networks and marketplaces.
So you talked about instant booking. Well, I was going to ask, is it instant booking? Because you were on about Scarlett, I think that was her name. She was booking the photographer.
Nice name.
Yeah. Is that what you're expecting, that person keeps their calendar updated, and then because I know a thing or two about booking systems, surprisingly, and that's actually the hardest thing to do, is to get people to keep calendars in multiple places up to date. So what's the...
Yeah, definitely. So it's one thing we do different to a lot of the more traditional VMSs, FMSs. We have an entirely separate product for the SMBs and the freelancers that's dedicated to them. They sync it with their Gmail calendar. So they're already, I would hope that they're already being booked for meetings in their Gmail calendar, and it's just going to auto-update their availability. So we don't rely on much input from them, other than accepting assignments, approving an invoice that's come through, or being notified that they've been paid or the invoice has been approved.
And then so a lot of the questions that I had were around engagement and drop-off and utilization, but from you just saying these were test cases, how much data do you actually have so far?
So we have over 100,000 skills endorsed, internally by all these companies, and around 60,000 vendors and contractors listed by these enterprises. 4 of them on screen have moved to enterprise license with us as well in the last 3 months.
So can you talk all about life beyond the freemium model? What does it look like?
So we go in first in a team. We just give them it for free. It helps us avoid the sort of legal and finance mess of big enterprises. And then it's usually at the point where they've got used to it. They're onboarding so many that they'll need features like the onboarding templates. We cap the number of things you can ask contractors and vendors, for example. So that's a natural like progression to upgrade. Number of integrations. So like free, you can list as many contractors and vendors as you want, but things like, and more enterprisey features too, like approvals, more integrations, more bulked out templates, that sort of thing.
Can you talk about pricing plan? I mean, I'm sure you
yeah, sure.
differ for big contracts, but even just a range of like what this is retailing at?
Sure. I mean, typically there's 2 premium tiers, and it's $85 a user a month for the middle tier and $150 per user per month in the top tier, which includes our payment integration.
So let's pick up on that. It's super important. How many users can you credibly see inside an organization? And how many users will a CFO happily pay $85 for? Because that's similar to Salesforce.
Yep.
So it's a real productivity enablement tool.
Yeah.
But how many seats per company you're expecting?
Sure. So off the back of those 2 premium deals, as soon as they upgrade to any premium package, every user gets charged $10 per user per month, and we call them a passive user. Because when we first went into companies, we noticed that the ops teams would want to purchase like 6 licenses, and the economics started to like not add up, of that taking us 5 to 6 months to sell it and then making like $15,000. So we would charge, for example, if the whole of Google needed in, we would charge them $10 a seat for a passive user, and then charge more like the ops managers, the HR manager, the production, the project heads, that sort of thing. We would charge them the full price, and we call them a power user. I struggle with that word, pronouncing that word, power.
How successful were you like having internal teams adopting the platform? Because I guess it's really easy for project managers, for example, to use the platform to manage the work. But then, like scaling that inside the organizations, how successful were you?
Yeah, so it always starts with the first. We had the most success and focus a lot on the first bit of what Lystable does, which is just the storing of the information and the onboarding. So that's super easy. So that made us able to go for less of like a platform value add and more of a content value add. So they would all import their spreadsheets, connect via Gmail, and then immediately establish all the networks that existed. So for example, if Fred and I connected the same Lystable enterprise account, he would import his contacts. It would probably map to some sort of like vendor information pulled in from the finance data. And then for the first time ever, I would know that Fred had worked with a marketing agency before. So we went really heavy on making sure that the content was there first. So, and then from then, honestly, it was like easier than we thought. So integration with like Slack and Gmail, being able to like pull the people in and the users, because that's all the end user wants is like we focus on the onboarding and the finding bit first. And as they get in there and the contacts are there, it naturally progresses into more of like the management stage. We definitely see less use, though, in communication elements, which is why we integrate pretty heavily and allow you to, for example, CC Lystable, just to record the information. So we get a lot of conversations recorded, but we never expected people to jump straight into using our messenger. That's definitely, the adoption on that has definitely been tougher. But in terms of access and sharing of context, that's been high, and that's how we've grown, because a creative in Tokyo might refer a creative to one of the teams in London, and that's been a big part of it.
So during like a project, how often does a team uses your platform a week, let's say?
Per project?
Yeah.
On the assignment, and then on the feedback bit. So similar to Airbnb, you book the apartment, you book the person, the vendor, and then to reuse the system again, you're asked to rate and evaluate them. So it's little blockers in there. So it's kind of like, even if they set up the project in Basecamp and they just export it to Lystable, then we'll just record it, and we'll be the feedback loop that auto-pings the employees and says how they perform. And that's kind of just like a top-down directive, because most of the feedback has been, we have no institutional knowledge of like who's good at what. We want to store that, and that's why they'll implement us, because they want that feedback loop. So we don't tread on, I mean, it was definitely tough at the start to balance like how much we got involved in project management and how much we were just like project tracking. But I think we've got like a semi-decent balance of the two at the moment.
So, I mean, I've heard you talk a lot about the data, and in your demonstration, there were 2 points where you touched on the data. One was importing vendors from a spreadsheet, and then the second one, you talked about institutional knowledge. So I have a couple of link questions about that. So source of vendors, are you relying on them to provide their own list of vendors? Because as somebody who runs a content network alongside an editorial network, one of the biggest problems is finding those experts. So are you relying on them to buy their own lists or find their own lists of vendors?
Yeah, so we are, it kind of comes down to the question we get asked by a lot of clients, which is, can you help us find new people? And we're just the management platform right now. So we go in at the point when an organization like Expedia is working with like 2,000 a month, and they just can't handle the management bit. And so they would have those existing spreadsheets. Like one of our clients imported like 170 across the enterprise and consolidated them into one. We definitely don't want you to manually enter it, though, which is why we offer the import. We also offer export straight from finance data. So the one thing these huge companies have in common is they've all paid these vendors and contractors before. So we'll just rip out the unique identifier from that and then pull in. And then we have a back end that will scrape the web and find out everything it needs to know. It'll connect to Judil and see if they're registered. So just from that one spreadsheet or that one unique identifier from the email, we'll pull in everything that they need to know about the vendor, which comes down again to the content play. It's like we can't just give them a solution and expect them to like enter all this stuff. So yeah.
Okay, so I mean that kind of ties into the second part of it, which is I was going to ask if Google adds a vendor to it. You're not sharing any of that data, right? This data is siloed within each company?
Internal management system, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, it seems, because with these businesses that are very data heavy, a large portion of their ongoing value comes generally from the flywheel effect of, hey, this vendor's great at this, so I can recommend them to this other company. Yeah. Have you ever considered any of that?
I mean, they can copy them. It depends on their privacy settings. We allow it for a lot, and that even, that's come up in sort of like the intercompany politics between departments. Should we be able to share, with one of our big advertising networks, should we be able to share them with our Tokyo office if that means they're taking that resource of that photographer? So they can completely define how much they want to, how fluid they want to make it. Like IDEO asked us that same question. They're like, so we love that we know people and are like big in the community, and we want to share like good UX people. Can we do that? So as long as they turn it on, they can share those contacts.
Right. I just have one quick question. So you talked about the shift from the kind of employee economy to the sort of freelancer economy, which is something that I totally believe in as well. But most of the pitch and most of what you've described is really looking at it from the employer perspective, from the corporate perspective. So what is Lystable to the freelancer, and how does he or she have a relationship with you?
Sure. So it's a good question. Sometimes we play down what we do in this side of things, but they have their own app. We just don't publicize it. I mean, it's completely designed bespoke to them.
Right.
They can find work through that. They can get paid on time through that, and it becomes like their business. So we really pitch that, and you can read a little bit about it on our website. But the only thing we haven't opened up and won't until we can ensure that we add enough value that side is public sign up to that. You can only use our management and find work and get paid on time if you're listed by one of our clients. Because right now we have so much demand on the enterprise side, and we're hiring a bunch of salespeople to sell that. We don't want to go towards that, but for example, to Fred's point on the market networks earlier, I mean, that has to be a longer-term vision of ours to open that up, the ability to get listed,
So in the long run, I could aggregate all of my ratings, all of my reviews, obviously the ones that the companies are happy with me sharing, and start to build a home of my own on there.
Exactly, and even build. So we have a huge algorithm behind the scenes, which is just building these anonymized scores of how good companies, vendors, and people are. So being able to get hold of that data, learn from it, get better, find new work is definitely a longer-term plan of ours.
Great, thank you.
We're good? All right, Lystable, you guys did a great job. Once again, judges, excellent questions.